All right, guys, how you doing? Welcome to another live episode. I don't think Russ and Steve knew this, but we are going to be live. Just figured I surprised them, so we'll start getting people coming in. We're going to pretty much answer whatever questions come our way. We could do this for about an hour, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. See what questions come your way. We're here to answer your questions. But before we start, so this is a Tier Talk live Q&A, but I want to mention my three sponsors. We have American Military University. Guys, if you're looking to get that higher level of education, maybe bring some experience into the classroom, check out American Military University. They support me, but they also support. It's live, can't edit that one out. They also support us in corrections. I also have Guardian RFID. So today's video is brought to you by Guardian RFID, or today's live Q&A is brought to you by Guardian RFID. From inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based business and artificial intelligence, Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit GuardianRFID.com for more information. We have Stephen Maynard on today, who works at Guardian RFID, so he'll be able to answer some questions. So we have a very good representative of a very good company that supports what we do in corrections. And we also have the WRAP, W-R-A-P. Controlling combative subjects quickly and in an upright position so they can breathe has never been more important. Departments such as Washington, D.C., L.A. County, San Diego County, and hundreds of other facilities across the U.S. trust and believe in the WRAP restraint. Go to saferestraints.com for contact information and mention Tier Talk to receive instructor training at no additional cost. Lower liability for your facility and your personnel with the WRAP. Give the WRAP a call today, 800-WRAP, W-R-A-P, 911. All right, we have 27 people in here. So, guys, keep the questions coming while you guys start figuring out those questions to ask. Let me bring the people on. So first, and it's been a while since we saw this guy, and he's going to tell us where he's been. Russ Hamilton, what happened, man? Where you been? You don't call, you don't write?
Oh, Anthony, it's, well, as a lot of you probably know, if you follow me over on Keepers of Chaos, the wife got COVID a few weeks back. And then I thought I was all free and clear of it, and things were looking good, and many days had elapsed since she started getting better, and I came down with it, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, but I'm starting to feel better. I'm starting to get back in the swing of things. My first day back at work is going to be on Monday, so I'm looking forward to that, and I'm just happy to be here putting in some work for Tier Talk.
Yeah. And guys, if you get a chance, don't forget Inmate Manipulation Decoded is on the market. So there'll be a link in the description, or you can check it out on Amazon. Hey guys, we also have Stephen Maynard. What's up, Steve? It's been a while.
It has been a while, and thank you, Anthony, for surprising me with this live broadcast. But yeah, Guardian RFID, it's a wonderful company. I worked in corrections for 15 years here in North Carolina, from slick sleeve all the way up to administrative lieutenant. And I joined Guardian RFID for one reason, because me and the company, we can help hundreds of jails across America. What do correction officers need? They need better product. They need better software. They need better support. Not only support from the ones they work with, but the companies that are in these facilities. And Guardian RFID across the board shares the same passion that I have for corrections. Living here in North Carolina, I represent pretty much the entire East Coast. I go out a little bit towards Indiana, Ohio, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, but East Coast is my area. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions and all questions via email or on here tonight. My email is steve.maynard@guardianrfid.com. Feel free to send me any questions, any concerns, or your facility wants to see Guardian RFID, but we don't have the money. Well, let's talk. Let's find a way to get it in there. So, yeah, I'm pumped, man. As you see, I can talk for hours. So, I want to hit my own brake for me, like driver's ed car. So
it's funny, Colette. I did a show recently, and I accidentally called William Young Russ. That's how much Russ has been on my mind, and Colette is just not letting us live that down. It was actually an episode that Russ watched. I'm sure he was quite emotional when he kind of heard me. I mean, William's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Will, but Will said, well, I'm no Russ. And, this kind of, he goes, it's awkward now because it's like saying the wrong name during sex. You know what I mean? So, what's up, Harvey? Hey, guys, so keep the questions coming. I want to mention something. So we just did a great conference virtual for Arizona. It was kind of like a train the trainer. And one of the questions that they asked, I thought we could start with this and then see the questions rolling as they come. We have about 26 people in here. And guys, if you like the videos, share if you could. One of the things they talked about is how do you motivate trainers right now who may be disenfranchised to kind of still spread the good message about what this profession is about. So I'll go with you, Steve, first, then we'll go to Russ. But how would you motivate the trainers now during these tough times?
Oof, that is a tough one because they get burnt out, they get complacent in their everyday duties, they're short staffed, so they're not just training, but they're maybe being the supervisor, and the supervisors being the FTO on the shift, and they're having to run units. I know, for example, a jail this local here, you got sergeants who are on the floor with 8 units, 8 pods, and they're the sergeant for these 8 pods. They're actually doing security rounds in these units because there's no officers to staff. I mean, that not only is a liability and just asking for something bad to happen, but the officer, the supervisor, just gets flat out burnt out. They don't want to train new officers if they are lucky enough to get new officers. So all this comes into play that just a lot of folks don't see. And it's I've been there. I've been there, and but I don't forget where I come from. So, a lot of these folks reach out to me and talk to me and vent to me about these situations. And you want to help, just at least be that shoulder and that ear, the shoulder to lean on and the ear to just listen. Even if I don't have any words to say, I like to be there for them when they can just reach out and call me. And trust me, they call me all the time, just burnt out. What can I do? And that it eventually takes over, and you don't want to see them get to that point. So you do what I can to help them, whether it's referring them to a mental health person. There's a wonderful one here in Guilford County, former officer Kim Sobin, and she is phenomenal. Now she works with the sheriff's office, so they can come to her 24/7 and say, "Hey, I've got this going on. Can you talk to me?" So we done a video a while back on that, and it's huge to have that person to reach out to.
Yeah, we have Revelation Disciple says, "Thanks for all your info, Russ and Anthony." She said, Revelation Disciples, let you know they said Russ's name first, but it's okay. I'm good with it. New CEO, and I've learned a lot about Guardian. It's awesome, and I love all the features. I thought that was worth sharing. Hey, Russ, what's your thoughts on, and I'll get to you, Jason and Harvey. I think there's 2 good questions coming up, but what's your thoughts on motivating the trainer?
Yeah, we're in, one of those particular climates right now where nothing is coming easy. This is that time where I think you really have to, try and rely on the camaraderie of your fellow trainers. We have to work at keeping each other honest. I want to be, I want, the people to, keep me honest, keep me motivated, feed me what I need and try and help me along. And I would do the same for them. And it's one of those things that you really have to have, some synergy between you and play off of each other and not let things just, get to the point where, good is, well, good enough, or maybe it's not. Staying enthused, staying motivated, always trying to, think outside the box and bring and deliver the product that you're supposed to be bringing to, especially to those new boots out there, and to keep them, invested in the process and to keep them hungry at, promoting the safety and the security of that institution and that department, and just trying to, really make a difference to teach people how to be that impact player. And is it hard? Yeah, it is. But that's why I rely back on that word so much, the camaraderie between trainers and being able to keep each other honest and motivated.
Yeah, I want to add something too, because I think Zoe touches on what we're discussing. She said, did 2 years as a CEO in South Florida. Enthusiasm for trainers has really run down, especially with the pandemic. Most are 5+ year vets that are tired of the crazy turnover rate. How would you change this? We have to understand what's in our control and what's not. I think as trainers, we have to get the message out there about the effort. I know a lot of us tend to focus on the outcome, and I think if we're destination driven, we're going to get very weird. We're going to get very torn down, because in the end, a lot of these things that we're fighting for just aren't in our control. But we have to start appreciating the effort on all ends. I mean, I know a lot of people want to kind of blame management, but management's also very limited, and they're run down. They're becoming disenfranchised. I mean, imagine having to be in the middle and having to translate the needs of the front line with the wants of the upper echelon, and last thing you want is a manager who becomes disenfranchised because they're making the effort, but no one seems to care because everybody's more focused on the outcome. So my thing is, I would try to get people to start looking at the effort. But for the people that are senior, remember, if you entered this profession for the right reasons, and I'm talking about you have a purpose that is internal, a why, if you're purpose driven, you're expected to go through tough times, but you have a very strong foundation, because let me tell you something, without struggle, there's no progress, so there's ways that you can find that motivation and still push through it all and be able, this is the hard part, guys, is to teach that, to take what you have, that inspiration, and try to inspire others. So I'm going to say this right now, for the vets that truly love this profession, you have to work harder to keep people inspired. So technically, this is when you're most needed. So I would love to say that, we get it why everybody's disenfranchised, but, for the vets that really have that right motivation, that purpose, and they really are inspired, this is your time where we as management need you the most. Because in the end, guys, we need you to keep people motivated and be that voice for us when, again, just going through these negative times, we need someone to kind of leak out something positive. So in closing, I would say appreciate the effort more, find that internal, that inspiration, that eternal why, and try to see if you can motivate others based on similar values and beliefs. And hopefully that gets us through the tough times. Because in the end, if you look at it, I got one more thing, guys, sorry. In the end, if you look at it, the people that have lost their motivation, I get it, but some of them could be externally driven. If we can kind of motivate the right people who go through this profession, even though it's tough times, but they're inspired, those are the people you want next to you anyway. So again, find the inspiration. I know it's easier said than done, but, if you have the right proper motivation, the right inspiration, and you could spread the message, I think the profession will clean itself out from the inside out. Right now, we're worried about the outside in, but in the process, we're not maintaining anything to push from the inside out, if that makes any sense. So I got some more questions here, so bear with me. But Zoe, tell me if we were able to answer your question, because I want to make sure we got to it. We have Jason Heasley. I'll start with Russ first, then Steve. My facility, one of 26 in my state, switched from using S&W 357 revolver to Glock 9mm. I was wondering what your thoughts are about that. I know a lot of us are totally capable with a Glock, but there are also some of my coworkers that a squirt gun might be too complicated for them. Also, some have Barney Fife syndrome and tendencies. So, all right, let me go to Russ first, and then I'll go to Steve. Obviously, this is your forte, guys.
So anyway, one of the last things that I did when I was with California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation was actually go through the transition course, because that's what we had. We had Smith & Wesson, 38s. And so, switching over to that Glock, it was a big deal. For me, I didn't have a problem with it because I already had a Glock. It was something that I already shot. But the thing that you have to keep in mind is the Glock really is a weapon that you're having to run with. And, you're the one that you're running it. You're clearing malfunctions. You're having, that tap rack, and get that thing back up and in battery and ready to fire. And, it's not one of those things that's just easily, you forget about it on your belt and you don't really, take much, thought and care as to what's going in. You really have to be on top of a weapon like that. You really have to, be committed to mastering it, because it takes a lot more to master that type of weapon. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Those individuals that don't want to step up, I hate to say this, but it's probably time to start drumming them out if they're not willing to be dedicated to the point where they're willing to master that weapon. So I think it's probably better to have those particular weapons on the line. Certainly, if something ever happens at an outside hospital or along the way in some kind of transportation scenario, to have that extra bit of firepower, that ability to, quickly and more efficiently reload. I think that, it's one of those things where corrections is looking to, go kicking and screaming into the 21st century and adopt those things that, street level law enforcement has for decades now. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Well, let me get Steve's 3 cents worth, I guess, so I can get a nickel at least out of this. What do you got, Steve?
I agree 100% with what Russ said, and I'm outside enjoying this weather in North Carolina right now, and I actually ran to my Jeep and I grabbed my Glock. I live and die by my Glocks. I love my Glocks. I love my guns, and there's nothing wrong with a revolver. But like Russ said, a Glock 17 is the most commonly used pistol in law enforcement right now. 9mm. I mean, you're carrying 17 rounds in a pistol, opposed to a 357 revolver, which may be 6 or 8. You can't tear these things up. Freeze it in a block of ice, let it sit there for months, get it out, it's ready to shoot. Put it in mud, dig it up, it's ready to shoot. They're very reliable. That's my 2 cents worth, honestly. Agencies have to adjust with time. I mean, I love revolvers. Maybe as a backup weapon on my ankle or something, but me personally, I'm a Glock man. I love all my guns, but I live and die by Glocks. I love it. As you see, that's what's right here in front of me outside at my house. I keep it right here with me. So yeah.
I actually have a Glock 27, but as you could tell, I have very small hands. Guys, I'm only 5'5". I know a lot of people. Well, one time I got excited. Someone's like, "Dude, you look bigger on camera." I said, "Oh, taller?" They said, "No." I said, "Well, wait a second." Yeah. Hey, Harvey. We all know Harvey. Harvey's been following us for quite some time. He has a channel too, guys. Harvey Talks Prison. I love him. I mean, he's been in the system. He was formerly incarcerated, but he supports everything we do. And he gives a very fair perspective of what the system was like, but he does show support for the staff. So he understands the unfair generalization. Let's just do that. He doesn't stereotype us the negative because he's also had very positive interactions with officers. So I do appreciate that. So Harvey asked, what happens to a CEO who sees inmates being mistreated but does nothing? Are they just as guilty? Some are afraid to lose their job, which I understand. Now, guys, I'll let Russ and Steve go first, and I'll go. But this is a great question, because the way we're going to answer it is not what people think and probably not what they believe. But the sad thing is, guys, that's the perspective that the media pushes. So I'll go with Steve first this time, then we'll go to Russ. Steve, what's your thoughts?
Well, coming from all standpoints, all levels, from slick sleeve all the way up to administrative lieutenant when I left, if I know there's an officer who is witnessed mistreatment, inmate mistreatment, officers not doing their job correctly, they're just as guilty. Across the board, just as guilty, and need to be punished the same way as the officer who was doing the deed, if you will, mistreating that individual. They're no better than that person. And if they're not punishing or disciplining that person, then that supervisor or that administrator is just as guilty. That's point blank. There's no sugarcoating any of that. That's just what it is. Those individuals should not be allowed to work in law enforcement or corrections. There's a thing called integrity, ethics. If you violate that, then all trust is gone. It's all out the window.
You're muted.
I caught it. I hit it. I knew it.
Gotcha.
Your Streamlabs got like that 2-second delay. Russ got no delay. The one thing about this, and Steve mentioned, I just want to touch on something real quick, is that ethics is basically, sometimes people think of ethics, they think of like the illegal versus the legal. Guys, ethics is really how we're supposed to treat each other, the golden rule. So mistreatment doesn't always have to mean that we're illegal in what we're doing. It just could mean that we're just not respectful or professional in how we carry out things. So I think it's great that he popped out the word ethics, because a lot of people think, well, mistreated, it automatically fall to use of force or sex with inmates. No, there's other things that have to be regulated, which actually deals with the way we treat the population, but also we are held to a higher standard. So having said that, it sucks the way, right now the world's going, a lot of things shifting towards the inmates. We get it, but we still have to remain professional and just, make sure that, we're doing what we can to make sure that we actually are, sorry guys, someone's calling me as they're going in. I'm trying not to get distracted, but we're held to higher standards. And in the end, guys, we can't always expect to bring the inmates up, but we could expect better from ourselves each day. And it's hard, but for those that do it, thank you, because you're a true reflection of what this profession needs to be. And you're also, and to be honest with you, you're the type of people that we need out there, because in the end, when people say this is bullshit, we can't do it, then you always get that professional that says it's not easy, but you can do it. What's your thoughts on Harvey's question, Russ?
Yeah, so I think the thing that I always want to put out there is I always want to be teaching my people how to interact with the inmate population. How they should be, talking to these individuals, how they should be responding to them, and what the proper responses are. I want to give the population the correct answers and things like that. And, in the grand scheme of things in corrections, there is a time and place for all kinds of different communication to take place. All of the time, it should be professional. There are times when that is necessarily going to take a much harder tone, a much harder necessity, a much more of a command presence. But that's not in every situation every single day. So the thing that, I always used to like just to impress upon people is give everything its due diligence that is deserved in that moment, right? And number one, of course, amongst that is being professional. Like I say, though, there's times where, it's going to require you to tell that inmate, get down, belly down on the floor, whatever it is. And that's a whole different scenario, right? We've moved beyond that, being able to treat someone with the dignity and respect of the moment, to having to command them in order to stop a potential incident. So the main thing is in everything you do, be professional, right? Always, accept that mantle upon yourself and just exude that. That's what turns you from being just, a run-of-the-mill officer into being a leader.
Yeah, and guys, inmates want the lawsuit. They want to push the buttons. I mean, every time there's an inmate attacks staff, you're going to have lawyers calling in expecting for us to retaliate against the inmate. So, that's what's expected of us. So it's great when we don't retaliate, and then the lawyers have nothing, and all we can do is smoothly move this person to where they need to be, and eventually hopefully charged, and justice is served. But I also want to mention something. So when we talk about mistreatment, right? So we have to have each other's back. We get that, brothers keepers, sisters keeper, whatever it is. So the thing is, part of it is making sure that we each help each other hold that level of professionalism, especially because, guys, what helps us be professional is the self-discipline, that we have to have. So basically, if I come in with a good purpose and good ethic, that is great to relate to some self-discipline that's going to help me deal with proper intent and excellent behavior, if that makes any sense. So if I maintain good discipline with a good foundation of purpose, it's very hard for the inmates to make me shake to anywhere they want me to go. And that includes me remaining professional in the toughest of times. Now, and by the way, that it's very hard to do. So I'm going to say I have to give more kudos to the staff that do remain professional during the toughest of times than as for those who decide to kind of, tit for tat. It winds up just being a headache, man. It's not worth it, because again, that's what people expect us to do. And we have to break away from that. But I also want to mention something else, because mistreatment could also lead to the physical. So let's say you have a use of force that's negative. I want to mention something, guys. A lot of people think that when an officer strays away from reporting what's right, from reporting what's right, it's not always because they're looking to protect corruption. It could be because they don't want to be a social outcast. So the officer is, trust and believe, you have officers that may have failed to do the right thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm holding them accountable. I'm not saying that they have to be held accountable, but if we want to change things, we have to see things from other people's perspectives. We have to be highly empathetic, which means that we have to stop looking inwards and look outwards. That means we have to start seeing the people and understand where their decisions may be coming from. So again, not to negate or minimize their level of responsibility, but just to kind of, why would you do it this way? Why would you not report it? And again, my biggest thing is that we push for this connection behind the wall. And it's so intense that if we see someone doing something wrong, we're afraid. Again, I'm not saying they shouldn't do it, just hear me out. Some will be afraid to get involved, especially if it's a clique. Especially if it's a clique, because they don't want to be an outcast because, hey, I got to survive. These people got to have my back, but I'll guarantee you this, and this is advice for all my new boots. For those that freeze, all you need is one person to step up and do the right thing, and the other people that are frozen will follow. But you need that first courageous person to say, not today, not on my watch, and do what they can to make sure that at this point you have to protect the inmate from what could be a few rogue officers. But a lot of us freeze. But again, if you get that one person that steps up, it's going to motivate others. And next thing you know, that's the best way we could police each other. But I just wanted to get that out there. We have a few more questions coming in. Does anybody want to comment on that last part at all? Or can we go to the next question?
Ready for the next.
All right. So I'm going to start with Russ first because we did Steve first. Let me just make sure I go in fair order. So I believe we have Aaron right here. How do you guys help train critical thinking skills? This is all Russ. All right, hold on. All right, so then, you know what, Russ? You read the question, man, because your face just lit up. You heard the word critical. So, Russ, can you read the question, please?
Okay, so how do you guys train critical thinking skills for frontline officers to bring non-confrontational and or overly aggressive officers to a good working balance? Ooh. Okay, so one of the things I always talk about is critical thinking skills and complacency, right? And what I want to do is I want to give these skill sets to officers to be able to, make their department, make their little unit, their facility, all that much safer. And the way you do that is by bringing these, critical thinking skills to the forefront and teaching officers how to think about those things which may not be apparently obvious that can really impact an incident. One of the things that I've taught a lot about in the past, just as a real quick example, is I used to ask people. I said, "Okay, so you're in your unit, and you're doing a search, and you come across an inmate manufactured grappling hook and some sheets." And right at that moment, you see the two inmates who this particular cell belongs to, and you stop them and get them in cuffs. What do you do next? And invariably, man, all these people, man, they just jump straight to, go into the whole thing with regards to, a crime scene and taking pictures and all of these things like that. I tell them, you know what? You've fallen for it. You're not thinking critically. We don't know that an escape already hasn't happened, and these guys just weren't in position to be part of it. And so, and that's one of the things I've talked about with Anthony before when we did the whole keys scenario. What do you do when keys are missing? And people, all the time, they jump right to that easy thing. Oh, well, we found them, right? Well, no, we have to do staff accountability. We have to make sure that no one's hurt. We have to make sure that nobody's missing. We have to make sure that, no inmates have gotten into areas and done other things that have potentially impacted the safety and security of our institution. So with that being said, is you want to develop scenarios. And the biggest one that I always preach about is that what if game, right? Ask yourself, what if this happens? What do I need to take into account? And is there something that I'm missing? Am I only looking at the obvious? because it's easy to answer the things about the obvious, right? It's not so easy to figure out about what else might have gone wrong, what else might be impacted, how else safety, security, and even lives that might be in danger at that moment, simply because you haven't been able to think things all the way through. So that's what I would go there with you. What if? Play that what if game and decide what you need to do in any given scenario, all the way down to the end of, providing medical care or whatever it is. But don't miss those things where you're in the middle of a critical incident and you don't even know it. You could be in the middle of that critical incident and think it's just something light, it's something easy, because you haven't had the foresight to see beyond your own blinders that we put on all the time. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Got a couple of videos that we've done with Tier Talk on that very subject. You're muted. You're muted. I got you again. You're muted.
That's crap, man. You just took a shot. You didn't know if I was muted or not. You took a shot. I didn't get a word out. I didn't even get a word out. I saw it. I hate it.
That's what someone forward thinking like me that can read into the situation and see the critical incident and the critical thinking skills is able to do.
Dude, I'm admin. I make mistakes all the time. Hey guys, so I want Steve to touch on this, because as you can see, Russ is very passionate about critical thinking, because in my opinion, critical thinking is what saved lives. It kind of keeps you on your toes. I think the gentleman in the comments said it kind of helps you with the what if, because I think it just helps prepare you. It gets you in the right mindset when you're in, and then, it's something that is of value in our profession, but it's not always easily taught. I think it's something that, is really a strong gift. But because I know some people that they just can't do it. It's not in them. But Steve, what's your thoughts on the importance of critical thinking?
Oh man, it starts day one with field training. Me as a field trainer, and it showed because it's reflected off the officers who I train, who are now field trainers at my former agencies. From day one, I came up with all sorts of scenarios. And hey, Anthony, your phone's ringing. But I would come up with different scenarios, and if I came across a situation where I noticed something was going to break out, I seen 2 inmates arguing, and I had my trainee with me, I would say, hey, or even the officer would address me, hey, I think they're going to fight. All right, well, let's sit back. If it's safe, let's look at this. What are you going to do? If they start fighting right now, what are you going to do? Is it fight or flight? I need to know what my guys are going to do. Because fight or flight is a quick decision in a jail. You know that. One wrong decision could be your life, not the inmate's life, but your life. Are they setting this up for me to go over there and break it up, and they're going to jump me? So I don't want a hothead just running over there to break something up, go hands on, when really they're setting it up to get him or her. It happens all the time. So from day one in training is where I start that critical thinking. Most time it was night shift. We go through scenario based. All right, if fire breaks out, what you going to do? You're just conducting a security round. You come up on this cell, that guy's hanging. What are you going to do? So all these things you want them to run through their mind, because eventually, the longer they stay, it's going to happen. And it does. It happens. It's the nature of the beast. It's the job that we live in, or that we work in. So training is vital when it comes to that. And I stress to every FTO, even the ones that I trained as officers who are now FTOs, they're doing the same training. And they're like, man, it helps. It gets these guys thinking, gets their brain thinking. You don't know what you're going to do until you come across it, but at least you've thought the process through. You've played it out. So,
yeah, guys, there's a lot of idle time also in correction. So I think when you start understanding, when you start understanding what you're doing, the layout, a lot of it comes from also evaluated experience. You know what I mean? So you may not be able to have that critical thinking when you first get into the profession. But as you start, I like what Steve said, as you start going through it day by day. Now, by the way, experience is one thing. Evaluated experience is where you want to be. That's how I think we're in the positions that we're in. By the way, the people in this dialogue that, ask me these questions, they're evaluating something. So a lot of guys says, well, I may have 25 years experience. And what does that mean to me? It doesn't mean nothing to me unless you're telling me that you've evaluated everything you've been through. So I think that as you grow in this profession, you kind of go through certain situations And then when you have a chance to think about it, you evaluate what could have happened and you really sit down and evaluate. You talk it out with your people, and then you kind of build these, I don't know, different ways to solve situations that will increase in that mindset. So if you're going through these experiences and not really thinking about it, just, not even discussing it, then you're losing out on the best part of the experience, which is the evaluation part. And to me, I think that's why some of us become, really good at critical thinking, because we have a habit of really looking inwards and just kind of understanding the situation and then how we ourselves react to that situation. And by the way, like with Russ and Steve, these guys worked in active facilities. They have gotten involved. That's why they're able to not only just have that strong mindset, but they have experiences that I'm sure they have gone over and over and over. That's why even with this panel, we're not afraid to answer any questions, because every time we went through something, each one of us, when we had a chance, would sit down and just ruminate, and guys, we're not even afraid to say, what if it went backwards? What if it wasn't so successful? What if I didn't do it this way? So again, guys, the key for critical thinking is you're going to get experience, but you have to evaluate. This is something that doesn't come passively. It doesn't. You have to this is intentional. Critical thinking, if you want to strengthen your critical thinking, it is intentional. That way, if it's intentional, I think people can learn to do it. But it's not something that you're going to walk in without any effort and be good at it. And that's just my opinion on that. So we got a lot of questions coming in, guys. I'm going to try to get to whatever we could. I want to get to Stephanie's, but I know Zoe asked another question up above. I want to make sure I get to it. So hold on, guys, because she asked first. Where are you, Zoe? Here she is. What's your view of the officers who are clearly unfit physically to do what is needed in this hostile environment? They're not able to help you due to their gut getting in the way of their cuffs. Okay, so obviously I'm eliminated from this question. So let's go with Steve first. Steve, and then we'll go to Russ. What do you got, Steve?
Wow, okay. How do we answer that? I mean, I know officers who are physically fit. I know officers who are not physically fit. It is what it is, but that doesn't make them a bad or good officer. Can we all be healthier? Yes, of course we all can be healthier. But appearance is key in corrections. I know Anthony posted something yesterday, I believe, talking about he wished there was a mirror when you walked into the jail. You could see yourself. And believe it or not, that is very true. To look at yourself.
Don't forget my line. The question you got to ask yourself when you look in that mirror. This is how the inmates will see you today.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. That's the truth. That's what they're going to see. Whether it's day 1 or year 30, they're still going to look at you from boots to the top of your head to see what you look like. If they know your boots are dirty, your shirt is wrinkled, they know you're having a bad day. I mean, that's point blank. That's all there is to it. It doesn't matter if your gut's hanging over to your knees and you can't even take the steps without losing your breath, or you can run an entire security round left and right. It doesn't matter. The inmates are going to look at you and judge you off of your appearance. Now, to answer that question, I know I went way off the tracks there. Physical appearance, it doesn't make you a bad officer. I know several officers, many officers who are overweight, but they're good officers. They're good folks that I would take to battle with me day in and day out. So, that's a tough question, but a lot of people don't want to hear the truth. Now, in this profession, you want to be fit because it is a stressful job. So you're looking at the mental part and the physical part coming into one. You want to make sure you are at the top of your game, because one thing I always like to post this picture, the inmates, they're always working out. They're always doing push-ups. They're always doing pull-ups. They're always working out. So what are you doing to help yourself? Are you sitting back chilling when you're at the house? Are you going to the gym? Are you doing something? Or are you doing nothing? So that's my 2 cents.
I think also, guys, when it comes to working out, especially in this profession and keeping yourself, let's just say keeping yourself in shape, because you're right. I do see some people that you would look at them and it's like, oh, how are they going to, but they do. They run, they're there. But again, they're connected to the people that they work next to. So they don't even think about it. They just go at it and they get the job done. But I do want to say something for people that are out of shape and don't make the effort. Someone's relying on you.
Yep.
And if you feel that and if you can't run or you can't, or if you run to a code, you're more of a liability. You got to remember something, guys. You're not just putting your life at risk; you're putting someone else's life at risk. So I think it's a good question that Zoe asked, because again, it kind of makes you think also outside of myself. Again, kind of moving ourselves from inward, looking outwards. What about if someone expects me to respond, and then when I get there, I'm fucking useless. So, what's your thoughts on that, Russ?
Yeah, there's a whole lot to unpack in that. And, we do have to do everything that we can to try and stay, in good physical condition. One of the biggest problems, though, that we have naturally, of course, is the fact that we're so down on staff and we're holding people over. And, by the time you finish that, first, second, third double of 16 hours and stuff, your ability to go out there and do the things that you need to do is severely impacted. That's one reason why I think, that administrators and management need to be giving people the things that they need, the tools, the skill sets and stuff to be able to hone themselves, right? And so that's why I think that, they should be doing everything they can to fill all of those empty slots, to not hold people over all of the time. Because, I don't look at it as a game of just an individual doing what they can do. You know what? They have to be empowered by having the ability to do it. And if they're doing, all of the doubles every week, they're never going to be able to bring themselves into the kind of shape that they need to be. And can we fault them for that? I don't think so. So what I would say is dedicate and rededicate yourself, though, to doing what you can to stay in shape, taking that extra bit of effort, and then hopefully somewhere along the lines, maybe some administrators, maybe some managers will, help you out by, filling those positions and try and make it where it's not such an overburdensome thing to have to deal with all of the hours that you're putting in every week. I know if you guys are over there on Keepers of Chaos and you see some of what I'm doing, yeah, I'm retired now, but I'm 58 and, I'm hitting that gym, damn near every single day and doing my part just to, keep the mental part up, keep the physical part up, and try and, be a beacon to someone else who also wants to, have someone to look up to and think about, hey, if Russ Hamilton at 58 can do this, so can I.
I think I'm going to talk to Steve. Maybe Steve can go to Guardian RFID, and we could maybe do a Tier Talk Guardian RFID mirror that actually has that, and we could, as a bit of a gift, give it to the different facilities. And this is how the inmates will see you today in a nice 6-foot mirror, and then they put it right there, and I'll have Guardian and Tier Talk and Keepers of Chaos. Of course, for us. Of course, that we Keepers of Chaos.
I love the idea. Thank you for your partnership. Put this in your locker room or put this somewhere where your officers pass by it daily.
Yeah, as soon as they look at it. I mean, listen, it's even about the fact that if you have some inmate that it's not going to do much for someone that's already corrupted, but if you have an inmate that's playing the game and the person's on the edge, maybe that one stop at the mirror is going to say, I'm better than this. You never know. Is it wishful thinking? Hey, you only got to save one. Mm-hmm. Save one. Hey, right. Steph asks a good question. I work in an AgSeg unit. Being the only female on my unit, I feel as though I have more to prove. I love the team I work with. However, I feel as though they don't back me with some inmates, whether it be a minor or major write-up. I give an inmate some. Some of my fellow COs seem to side with the inmates. I'm very structured on my unit, and the inmates know this. When you have other COs who let the inmates run the unit and dictate what and when they do things for the day, I struggle with it. You know what's funny? That doesn't always have to be because of your gender. Sometimes you do have staff that do that. You do your job, you go above and beyond, and then you can even get a weak supervisor that, it's just, I'm not in for the write-up today. Maybe they're lazy or maybe they're a cat, who knows, and they don't support what's coming their way. I know a lot of lazy supervisors that have great officers who do their job, but now because they're lazy, the officer starts to kind of get disenfranchised. So, and that's a bad thing, guys. The bad thing is having a great officer work under a shitty supervisor. because that shitty supervisor becomes the lid for that great officer's potential. But well, let's address the question. So I'll go to, I think it would be Steve first this time, right? Or no, Steve did the physical first. So we'll go to Russ first. Russ, what's your thoughts on Stephanie's question?
Yeah. I think that this kind of comes down to a base thing about how you're actually training your staff to overall deal with inmates. And you're right, it doesn't have to be a gender issue or anything like that. Some officers are just comfortable in that idea about letting inmates, run the unit and not stepping in when they shouldn't have ever, let that go over to the inmates to begin with. We're the ones running the unit. We're the ones setting the tone. We're the ones saying yes and no, and not simply letting them, dictate what's going on. I used to sometimes as a sergeant come into these units and be watching the officers who are letting inmates dictate to them who's going to be moving where, the bed moves for the day and stuff. And just making constant problems by creating these clusters of STGs and everything else. And you know what? It's just from a lack of taking charge, right? You are the leader of those inmates, right? And you should be the one setting down the conditions, setting down the terms, and not letting the whole thing just go to pot. We get paid money to make those big decisions and to stop things in their tracks, and to instill discipline. And, just because the inmates are going to, resist is not a reason for us to just throw up our hands and abandon ship and say, hey, what the heck ever. And then since this other officer wants to try and stop that from happening, we're just going to, let them to the wolves. That's a no-go, people. Take charge. Be in charge.
Hey, guys, we also have Duty Ron in here. You guys get a chance. Now, he's blowing up, but he does real true crime story from a law enforcement perspective. I truly enjoy everything he does. We've been on the show before. Actually, one of the videos we did with him went over 250,000 views. But he's a fan of what we do in corrections. He's very supportive of what we do. So it's an honor to have Duty Ron sitting here. He's a fellow YouTube influencer, and he just stopped by just to show support. I do the same for him, too. Again, guys, if you get a chance, I know it's a little bit of a smaller crowd than he has, but get a chance, check him out, guys. He's making a difference because he's, showing people that law enforcement do care. And he's not only, on YouTube just sharing stories, guys, he's giving stuff back to the community of the victims, the families. He's helping bring closure to people that wouldn't normally have closure. So he's painting a very good picture of what we expect from the law enforcement community. So thank you, Duty Ron, for what you do. It truly is amazing. Okay, Steve, so what's your thoughts on Steph's question too?
Can you pull that question back up one more time?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah, I wrote down just while Russ was talking, and I've witnessed it. I've been through it. Inconsistency between the shifts. Maybe I'm in there and I'm doing my thing and I'm getting a lot of feedback from these inmates. They're not agreeing with me enforcing the rules of the jail, doing it the right way. I'm by policy. I'm consistent. I know how to say no, which is a big word in corrections. And it's tough when the other shifts are not doing that. But when you come in, you're enforcing the rules. And if you don't have supervision backing you up, then, that's tough. I've been there. I've seen it. And how do you address that? How do you fix that? You can only do so much. Do you? What I did when I had feedback, when I had controversy in the units, even as a supervisor, I'd go into the unit and say, guys, I can't control what these other shifts do. But when I'm here and when my supervisor's here, here's what we're going to do. We're going to enforce these rules. We're going to get along. We're going to do our thing. Normally, the individuals, the inmates, they usually respect that. And sometimes you have to say, hey, supervisor, hey, Sarge, hey, Corp, or Lieutenant, look, I don't agree with what's going on. Here's how I'm going to run my unit. Can you help me out? Sometimes you just got to pull them to the side and talk to them instead of getting mad and holding it in and not telling them how you're feeling. That's what I would want my staff to do to me. I had an open door policy come talk to me. If you disagree with something that I'm doing wrong or you think I'm doing wrong, I don't have your back, whatever it may be, come talk to me. Because yes, there is a lot of inconsistency between your shifts or your platoons. But all you can do is your part.
Yeah, Jay says it good. Any decent inmate appreciates when you enforce the rules and run a good unit. Hey, I want to add something to Steph too, just to kind of touch base. When I've actually dealt with the good old boy cliques. Thanks, Steph. I want to add something too. So I know how it feels to be on the outside. In my case, it wasn't so much of, obviously, I'm a male, right? So I wasn't a gender concern. It's just I worked at a female facility and I became a supervisor at a male maximum facility, and I didn't get the respect automatically. But I want you to know something. There was this group, we called them like a secret squirrel group. But eventually they start pushing more people out, and then there's just more people that are on the side, like not liking them. But it only takes, we kind of talked about this before, it only takes one person to say something. If you feel that you're being mistreated, sometimes it's just having the approach, because here's the funny thing, sometimes the people that do that and play those games, once you confront at least one of them and hold them responsible for their actions, all of a sudden they stop, because inside they're cowardice. It's all fun and games until someone holds them accountable, until someone puts some pressure on them and says, hey, I don't like what you're doing, and I'm asking for it to stop. And again, if you also feel that you're not supported, then I know it's not something we want to do, but sometimes you have to do it, is document things. Even if it's not official documentation, just hold on to it, because if later on, if something happens, you got all these specific incidences that you can kind of list to show where you feel that you've been unfairly treated. And as it comes for the support, officers right off the bat, they're sworn. So unless there's a reason to distrust their credibility, their word has more value than an inmate's word. Sad to say, but listen to what I just said. They're sworn. They're put in a trusted position. Unless there's a reason to question their credibility, their words have more value. So it's an officer's word. So what's sad is when you have a supervisor that has no reason to question your credibility, your peers, no reason to question your credibility, and they go ahead and they second guess what it is that you're saying or what it is that you're doing. So that's not a reflection on you. That's a reflection on them. So as long as you don't internalize it, no, it's not you, it's them. They're not the ones that are doing what's expected of them. You're going to be good. But never take their negative actions as if you're responsible for that, as if, you're the one that is causing this. It's them. So, that's the best I can give you, is don't internalize it and eventually hold one of them accountable. Just walk up to one of them and walk up to them when they're not with their peers.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you have a problematic inmate, you don't want to approach the inmate in front of people that support that behavior. So the best time to approach this person isn't when they're with their peers and having that support. Take them aside.
Yep.
Talk to them when no one's around, and let them get to know you. And then at least when they're with their peers again, they're going to act a little bit different because of that one-on-one dialogue. I'm not saying to trust them at first, but I think the best time to approach them is when they're by themselves and you don't have any counter influence to what it is that you're trying to you're trying to accomplish. Especially, you guys need each other, and the last thing you want is behavior that isolates the team. So you have to make the effort, and worst comes to worst, if it's still not good, then start documenting and we'll go from there. But hold people responsible for that, because it is unacceptable. It truly is. Hey, look, we got some of Duty Ron's people here. CJ Sunshine. That's pretty cool. Sure. Yeah, a lot of them came over one time after we did the episode. A lot of them crossed over and been very supportive in our community. So we had another question. I just want to make sure I don't. Hello from Aruba. It's just, that's pretty cool. We had some other questions too. Let me just see. I never thought about how the inmate sees you, but every day they always comment me on how clean my boots are. I always try to look professional. You know what's funny, guys? We were actually getting ready to do a dialogue. We'll probably have to do that next week. We have a gentleman who was formerly incarcerated. He's going to tell you what he expects from officers. It's all right. I want to hear what it is because, again, that, it's great to kind of get their perspective. But it's great that you mentioned that because that's going to be a dialogue we're going to try to have next week. Now, Ashton says, what if an inmate covers the camera? So, I mean, there's a lot of situations here that we can answer, but I could go right off the bat. When you have an inmate covering a camera, it's all in now. That's enough to justify. I mean, let's say you have a camera that's on an inmate cell that's on a constant watch, and it's adding to that level of security. The moment the inmate covers that camera and blocks your view, it's cell extraction time. It's getting in there, and you have no choice. And because again, that camera is what's keeping that inmate. Keeping your eyes on that inmate. But it happens. I mean, I'll go with you first, Steve. What happens when an inmate covers that camera?
Yeah, if it's in a cell, you're right. It's cell extraction time. I was team leader for a team. We had 53 men. So I was very familiar with cell extractions and open area riot controls and less lethal munitions. I still am a less lethal trainer. So I'm very familiar with that aspect. Now, if it's in the day room or if it's in a rec yard, inmates are throwing sheets or towels over cameras. I'm considering that an attempted escape. I'm going to the harshest charge in-house, maybe even criminally that I can find, because my command staff at the time backed me up with that. You don't mess with my cameras in my facility. You cover my cameras up, I'm going to worst case scenario, okay? Because that is my eyes in the sky. I can't see everything, but that camera can see a lot. So you start messing with my cameras in my facility, I will charge you for, damaging county property, whatever I can find. The magistrate will back me up with this. My command staff will back me up with this. We'll have the documentation. We'll do the reporting, and you can enjoy admin or disciplinary SAG for quite some time.
Yeah, I thought we can give her, Wes, a thank you for her service. She's hi, guys from Duty Ron. It's good stuff here. I used to work in a medical in Max Prison. Really important information here. Thank you. So thank you for your service as well, her, Wes. We appreciate you. I'm sure Russ and Steve would say the same. We do have one of my co-hosts on the show, Connie Eileen, and I know Duty Ron loves her, and so does Colette. She's former medical at a prison, and she really does add a lot of value to the show. And Black Rose, I remember her. Hey, Black Rose. Hey, Russ, what's your thoughts on covering those cameras?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, only bad things can happen when that starts. Inmates can either start, manufacturing weapons, or they can start hurting themselves. I mean, basically, that's go time. And so, there is no messing around with that because that impacts the actual safety and security of the facility. So, it's go time.
Yeah, and guys, I couldn't see CJ Sunshine. I couldn't imagine ever being in a jail. I give all you credit. Thank you. I appreciate all the love we're getting right now. Hey, guys, you know what's funny? Even with the camera, I think the inmates know the moment they cover that camera, we're coming in. They know that because, again, we're going to be held liable because we don't know what the hell the inmate's doing behind there. He could be – I mean, the funny thing is when you have an inmate in their cell and they cover the camera, do you know why we're rushing in? Because we don't want the inmate to hurt themselves. That's the first thing that comes in my mind. I remember inmates covering camera. Well, guys, I don't know if he's cutting himself. I don't know what the fuck he's doing in there. Mm-hmm. So we're going in to get the guy out just in case because at the end, we're going to be liable for whatever it is they decide to do. We don't. And then here's another scary thing. Because they cover maybe the little window and they cover the camera and we really can't see in, we also don't know what we're running into. So we're running in full force. Like Steve said, because of the threat that's there, we're going in with the team, the shield, and once that door opens, guys, even if the inmate says, hey, guys, it's, I was only playing, it doesn't matter. Once the momentum's in for safety reasons, it's no joke. And I want people to know when those cell extractions go on, people don't realize the cell extraction is to protect the inmate whatever, from themselves, whatever the incident is. And that's a risk for us because these inmates, they're not always afraid of the team. And some of them, you may get 5 guys coming in and we'll do it. But these guys can, especially if they're high on something, if they're, maybe they have some mental health concerns, they're not thinking logically. And, we wind up doing our best to try to pile on them. But remember, we're limited to what we can do to them, but they're not limited to what they can do to us. So, that's it's any situation in prison could be very, very scary. But if you have, again, good support staff, good support team, we get the job done. But people don't realize most of the time that we get hurt is always in an effort to de-escalate.
Yep.
And the next thing, listen, you guys can stop two inmates from fighting, and all of a sudden they turn on you. So what the fuck did I do? You know what I mean? I'm trying to stop the fight. And hey guys, so got a lot of people, Duty Ron, I'm loving it. You know, so Jessica. So guys, you have any questions from the outside? Duty Ron, just ask, guys. We're taking whatever questions. One says only 4 months into corrections, bought your inmate manipulation book, Uncoded book. Tons of great information. Thank you. Russ will have his book on inmate complacency soon. And Steve will have his book out soon, I'm sure, right? Come on,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Got to get that book out there. Hey, you know what? Since we have people from the outside looking in, and by the way, thank you guys for showing support here. I truly do appreciate it. Because, guys, we'll answer anything. You want to know what it's like for a pedophile in a prison, whatever, we'll give you some insight. But I will tell you this. I think this will be a great question that will I think this audience will like. What does the outside have wrong about what we do in corrections? I'm going to start with Russ first and then Steve. Go ahead, Russ.
I think that the outside, tends to view us as, knuckle draggers who have nothing better to do each day than beat inmates down and, involve ourselves in a bunch of, sado sort of activities against inmates. And nothing could be further from the truth. We are there to protect the inmates. We're there to make sure that they stay safe. We're there most of all, though, to make sure that society is protected from them. And we are the ones that, stand in the gap there to make sure that they don't go anywhere and that they live out and fulfill the sentence that's been given to them. And, in the midst of doing all of that, little bits of it do have to do with rehabilitation and reentry or what have you. A lot of it has to do with, just making sure that we are there to, execute the laws that have to do with, keeping them there, first of all, stopping them from engaging in STG activities, stopping them from, doing drugs and contraband interdiction. So, people all the time, they really have kind of a warped sense of what they think that we do. They think that we are abusive. And that is simply not true. I've spent, most of my life now around some of the most wonderful human beings that have decided to take this on as their profession, as their vocation. And it's made me that much more proud to be a part of it all, because I know what it takes. I know the heart that it takes to do this job.
You know what's funny too, because I want to say, so Jillian made a good question. Right? There's two good questions out here. One from Check It Out as well, and I definitely want to get Steve's perspective on the outside. But she mentioned something that's pretty good, Jillian, about protecting pedophiles. And someone's like, "Well, I would never do that." Well, that's our job to do that. And it's sad because some of them tend to be very smart, so they know how to passively manipulate the system. But with that said, I have children. Steve, I believe, has children. Russ has children. So, but our job is it's not personal. If this inmate did something, we know the job we took. We know our job is to make sure that he does his time or she does her time, because there are females, obviously, and that we're not responsible for anything that could lead their way to being harmed or jumped. And it is tough. Because you're right, but that's the one thing that people don't realize. What's hard about this job is dealing with people that have these offenses and trying not to personalize it and trying not to say, well, you know what? I have two girls too, and I you don't deserve shit. And it's like, guys, no, because you're not going to have a job. One of the questions they asked is, think about this question. And I just want you to really think about that, because it's not just correctional officers, but the staff, let's say the civilian staff as well, the program providers, medical. If I went up to, a random person on the streets that didn't work in corrections, don't know what it's like to work behind the wall, and I said, would you help a pedophile in need? They would all say, fuck no, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But if you ask someone behind the wall, and this is hard, guys, but they said, would you help a pedophile in need? We have to. We have to. We have to go against the grain. And it's one of the hardest things you have to do, but that's your job. And for the social workers and stuff that are doing programs, they actually, in order for them to be committed to what they do, because they, match that purpose, they have to believe that the pedophile can change. And a lot of them are mothers. A lot of them, could have been not even just pedophiles, sexual assaults. A lot of them could, it would have been their victim, but they're here trying to do what they can, putting their life on the line to, this person is not going to be in this facility forever. So do we give up on them, or do we at least make an effort so when the person gets released, again, they don't commit the crime again? So it's not, that's another thing, guys. The reason why we commit to the programming and stuff and trying to make things a little bit better for the inmate at that point is to make sure that they don't go out. We limit the likelihood of them reoffending. Can you truly rehabilitate a sex offender? I've seen dedicated staff that believe they can. So I'm going to lean on the people that believe they can because I trust in their work. And sad to say, I'm not saying I trust in the individual. That's not what I'm saying. But in order for me to sit in the position I could and to keep my staff motivated, I'm not going to tell a person who's dedicating the program that says you can't do nothing with that individual. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say, you know what? If anybody could, you could. So again, I have to keep my people motivated, and they do, some of them do believe strongly in what they do. Now, regardless of the outcome, because here's the one thing, guys, we talked about this before. Everybody looks at the outcome, but barely anybody ever appreciates the effort of what's happening behind the wall. That's something I thought was worth mentioning. What a great question by Jilly. Hey, Steve, do you have a question about the outside in? Because I do have another question I can go to you first with that I think you'll like.
Yeah, about the outside inside, what is really big in this area of North Carolina, we do citizen academies to give the citizens an outlook of what we do. And it covers really the entire department, but they do a few days of walking through the jail, seeing what these officers do on a daily basis. It opens up a whole new avenue of seeing things. And I definitely recommend that if your agency doesn't have a Citizens Academy, you ought to mention that. Say, hey, can we look into doing a Citizens Academy? Now, if you're a civilian watching this and you say, man, that's something I would be interested in doing, start reaching out to local agencies saying, hey, do y'all do a Citizens Academy? And if not, can y'all do that for the citizens? So I think that's an excellent way for civilians who have no idea what's going on inside the jail to get that one-on-one time inside the facility. You're safe. You're in there with staff, but you're seeing exactly what goes on, how these inmates live, what these inmates eat, how these officers are interacting with these guys and females daily, wearing 20 different hats, not just an officer. They're doing 20 different things for these inmates. They're not just in there to enforce the rules, enforce the laws, and lock down. It's so much more than that. And a lot of civilians don't understand that. They have to see it. And Citizens Academy is an eye opener for so many here in this area of North Carolina. So I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, someone asked me a question the other day. It kind of goes with CJ Sunshine said. So when you get people that are, let's say, doing programs, and let's say there's an inmate in their area and they ask for custody, it's like custody will be like, well, do you really believe in the programs we provide? Do you really believe this person could be rehabilitated? Then why do you need us here all the time? Guys, listen, at the end of the day is our job is to maintain some level of good behavior, but the last thing we want is for the person to fall back. So with that said, I want people to know that I believe in the work that's being done behind the wall because I believe in the people that are doing the work. And I'm not going to negate that. And they believe that, they're making this effort here. I have to keep them motivated, even in the darkest of worlds. Because if not, if me as a leader said, you know what, there's nothing you can do for that individual, this person really will find no value in going back to work. So what I've learned to do is appreciate people on a daily basis. Today was a good day, so thank you. Oh, tomorrow's bad. I get it. But yesterday was still good. So in order for me to keep my staff motivated, I don't put too much trust in, I'm not looking at it from the inmate. I'm looking at it from my staff. I believe that they can do the job. to anyone who's willing to be receptive to it. And again, regardless of the outcome, I do appreciate the effort, and I want them to know that daily. I don't want to disenfranchise staff and then we're not even making the effort anymore. You know, so it's very tough. It's tough. Guys, there's a couple of good questions I want to get to. I thought that was good. Check it out. And then there's another question by Bernie. But check it out. Says allowing a, oh, wait, no, we did this one. What was the other one? Check it. You had a, there's two. Check it. I got to get your question, man, right here. What is your opinion on inmate workers like porters and floormen who do a good job but have been on their position for too long? Can I get this one first? Because this kind of touches into what I talked to. I believe jobs should be rotated. I don't believe we should inconvenience the officer. I mean, there's always a dialogue too with officers that are bitted versus, you know, kind of moving people around so they don't get too comfortable. So I agree with that. Human behavior, it's going to bring people together, and you always have to kind of maintain that line every day. That's why it's very important that we call inmates by the right label. Because again, you know, in an environment where you're working with people every day, it's very easy to drop the label and build some type of relationship. So we have to always remember it's an inmate. So I remember what my role is, you know, at all times. If I see you as an inmate, I see you as the person. If I see you as an inmate, I see myself as within my professional role. I don't want people pulling me out of my prescribed role. Having said that, porters or trustees, don't like the name trustee, but they should be rotated, you know. But I also want to look at the supervisors too, because the supervisors also have to look at the relationships that are developing. Because here's my thing. The supervisors should be once removed from the inmates. You know, at least a sergeant, let's say. The sergeant supervises the officers, that supervises the inmates. So that gives the supervisor a very good objective view of the inmates and the officer. Yeah, and by the way, I'm talking custody. You could talk any department, really. Your frontline deals with the inmates directly. So that gives the supervisor a chance to look at things from above and maintain that objective relationship. That's why we're not a big fan of inmates always going directly up to the supervisor and manipulating the supervisor, because if that happens, not only do you manipulate the supervisor, you're manipulating who the supervisor supervises. You know, so if I manipulate Russ and he's, you know, Steve Sargent, if he's Steve Sargent, then guess what? I got Russ, I got Steve. I got everybody that's in Russ' area of control. So having said that, I do believe that it should be one level removed. But with that said, you got to watch out for what could be undue familiarity, which comes from just that frequent contact with that inmate. And the thing about porters are kind of in a position where they help staff. So you can get staff that may feel obligated. And we got to nip that in the bud by letting the staff member know, hey, there's no favors here. You tell an inmate to do a job, that's the job they do. You don't want that inmate that says, well, I'll clean it for you, Steve, or Officer Maynard, but only for you. No, you're going to do it because I told you to. Because in the end, when an inmate pops the word favor, the next word that comes to mind is obligation. And eventually that inmate will want to pay that back. So I do believe you should do what you can to kind of move people around. Is that feasible? Not all the time. But if you could do it, but again, you also have the supervisor that should be able. I've had it happen where, hey, Ganj, this detail is getting a little bit too comfortable, so we're gonna have to start moving them around. What's your thoughts on that, Steve? And then we'll do Russ.
I agree 100%. I was, as you were talking, I was thinking, and it was the same thing you were saying. I mean, yeah, they need to be rotated, whether it's different areas of work. Jobs within the facility, whether it's kitchen, laundry, and some facilities have outside work, you know, whether depending if it's lower charges with your county agencies, you know, around here they go outside, they mow yards and all that, but they don't need to be in this same position day in and day out or week in and week out. So I'm a firm believer in rotating these guys. A lot of them I've seen them, you know, you ask them to come down to booking, you had a guy who maybe bled everywhere or rubbed feces on a cell, and well, what are you going to do for me if I clean? I'm not here. No, that's not how this works. This is your job. Clean the cell and go back up to your pod. Now, I'm not giving you the officer's coffee. I'm not giving you an extra tray. This is your job. If you don't like it, you can go back to general population, and I'll find somebody else to replace you. The end. But, you know, I see that. I've seen that day in and day out with these inmate workers. You know, they feel like you owe them something for them doing what their job. But, yeah, rotate these guys or ladies. Some facilities use women for inmate workers. So, but yeah, I'm a firm believer in rotating them, just like you are, Angie.
Yeah, me too. And what's your thoughts, Russ?
My thought is that my battery's almost gone. I can't even.
Oh no!
I can't even see.
So, Russ, wait, I do have a question for you before you go, because I
Okay.
guess we come to a close and wrap up. Guys, if you want more live shows, let us know. And guys, if you're from the outside looking in, we'll answer any question. If you have, family in the profession, if you have a family member in the facility, we can answer. Maybe give you some advice on how they can do their time just a little bit better and the correct way. But I want to answer Duty Ron's question. Because he was nice enough to come to the channel, show support, and then bring his wonderful community, which I believe is, is a great addition to what we have here. And again, thank you, Duty Ron. But you asked the question that hits home, and I'll have Russ go first, and I'll have Steve, if that's all right. But Anthony and Guest, I'd like to know, is the suicide rate among correctional officers, is it high like police officers? I think we're higher.
Yep.
Yes, we are higher. Just as a matter of fact, I've just this past weekend known of at least one more officer that just decided to check himself out, and it's always something that's I don't even hardly know how to address things anymore, because I'm beyond. I don't have enough fingers and toes left anymore. The number of people I actually know who have committed suicide. So it's very, very high. I know in 1 year with California Department of Corrections, we had 5 suicides at one institution at Pelican Bay in 1 year. So, it runs the gamut, and it's a sad thing. We have a lot of great people out there that try and address it, like William Young, for instance. It's just one of those things where it's very, very sobering when you start to look back toward the end, from the beginning of your career, the number of people that you will know that do commit suicide.
Well, go ahead, Steve. I know you want to comment.
No, I was just agreeing with everything you said. I've seen it, I've witnessed it. I've been the supervisor or command staff over officers an officer who has committed suicide, and a couple who has attempted suicide. I've been on the other end of the call from an officer who actually called me and said, "Hey man, I can't take it anymore." So that stuff is real with corrections. It's realer, and it's getting worse because they're getting more shorthanded. They're getting more overworked. They're working more overtime. They're not getting paid very good. I mean, corrections, you're not in it for the money. You know that. And then it takes a toll at the house. Where my wife's in the ER. That's stressful enough. And then when I was working in corrections, you had 2 stress jobs, and then you come home, and it's just there's only so much a human being can take. Okay, there's only so much. And so you want to be able to spot that out. So you have to I am my brother's keeper kind of thing right there. You got to realize that. You got to recognize that. Sometimes it's hard to recognize, but you got to do your best to stay in contact with your folks. Recognize, hey man, is everything all right? Pull them to the side. And I think that's the supervisor's duty, to make sure your folks on your shift is good mentally. Or not physically. We talked about physical fit a while ago, but are you mentally fit for this job? If you can't do it, we need to talk. There's other jobs out there. Are you fit for this job? So it's big, it's real.
Yeah, and guys, I want to mention something. Jessica, I actually, right before we did this live show, Steve, right here, he had someone that we were going to have on, just trouble with the connection, who was a good friend of his, is a good friend still. Mm-hmm. Yep. And he was his officer. The gentleman got arrested. He was explaining his story, and Steve was his officer. So we're going to try to have the dialogue next week. Maybe I'll make it live. So if you guys want to join, I'll make an announcement so you guys can ask whatever question is. It's very hard, but it is a show we have coming up next week. So I think it's a great idea for a topic. So thank you, Jessica. But we do have it coming. We were getting ready to do it now, but his connection was bad. And his story is very interesting. Guys, so many good questions coming. It's hard to. Can we just do one more? You know what? Let's stay on the same topic real quick. We're gonna end on this one, guys. And guys, you're more. If Russ wasn't dying, my actually iPad's going down to 22%. So what I'll do maybe one day is, if we get enough interest, I could maybe do a longer one, and we'll answer all questions that you want to ask from the outside. I'll take them in, and I'll bring a good amount of people. I'll have Steve, Russ, Connie. I'll bring William Young for PTSD. We'll cover anything from the inside out. But I want to mention something, guys, too, with the suicide before we go into this question. I'm part of a CISM team, or was. Now I'm part of a wellness thing. The biggest thing about the suicide is how it's going to affect staff that feel they could have done more. And by the way, what we say in corrections technically could apply anywhere. Like, I mean, we do leadership videos. Colette mentioned something about a yes video I did. Those videos could be applied not just to corrections; they could be applied, elsewhere, because I'm getting the information from elsewhere and trying to figure out how it applies to my world. So there's Colette yelling Connie. That's her road dog. So a lot of people, when a suicide occurs, a lot of people actually feel levels of guilt and anger. It's very rough when a suicide happens and you're left with the staff that doesn't know how to deal with it. I think we lost Russ. Russ may be frozen. I think his phone died. So it's me and you, Steve, for a second. You could tell that his picture flipped over, so the phone just probably fell out and died. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, everybody from Duty Ron. Thank you, guys. Thank you to Tear Talks family. So the biggest thing for us as management is making sure staff's okay. There's going to be that immediate response, and they're going to have a moment, to kind of handle what happened, because it could really kill a facility, the morale. So it's something that we have to kind of take very seriously. You'll have a team coming in, and I remember a story where we had a training officer that was one of the nicest training officers you could ever meet, and it was in the paper, so I'm not sharing anything that the public didn't have access to. Yeah, he did go a little sideways. He was a trainer that people loved, and there was a concern that happened at home that led to him taking out his wife and then taking himself out. Now, when we went into the facility to kind of talk to staff was very conflicted because they didn't know how they should feel. They had a guy that they loved because he was good to them, but they also had a guy that committed a murder. So they were very conflicted into, how do I feel about this? So when we arrive on the scene, again, just in general, you can't sit there and wait for people to come to the team, not in the corrections profession, because we don't want to admit that we're vulnerable. So you have to go out there and walk around and just kind of gauge who comes to you and to see who maybe want to talk. And there's hints, you'll know. So I remember one person having just a concern and saying, I feel a certain way, but I don't think I'm allowed to feel this way because of what the person did. It's like, you're allowed to feel whatever way you have to. Like, if you want to get better at this, it's not about his final action. It's about how he treated you and what you need to do to go through it. And that's when I realized, guys, that we're human. 100%. I remember another issue where there was a female ITI that I was invested in regards to trying to bring her up, make her do the right things, and really invest time in, making sure she's, ready for this profession. And she made a bad choice, wound up in the, in the jail. And there could have been some concerns with an involvement with an inmate, whatever it is. And as much as you want to hate it, because I hate it, to me, that's when you cross the line. The moment custody staff messes with an inmate, you violated all levels of trust that we have for you behind the wall. It's something that we take very seriously, something that you're not going to earn trust back. So when I had to go meet with this person, and again, I'm not being specific, but there's a moral to a story here that I want to share in regards to the human side of it all. You tend to be told as custody, you have to hate this person because they violated. They chose an inmate over you, over the trust. I remember, guys, when I say choose an inmate, guys, you got to realize something. The chance this person that could, get manipulated and bring contraband in, which could wind up killing somebody next to me, one of my brothers and sisters, we're talking about a serious violation of trust. So in my mind, I'm hating this individual, but I had to serve some paperwork. And I went to go serve the paperwork. And all I saw was the young kid that I invested time in. And when the person literally, as I'm getting ready to leave, she goes, "Young kid, I don't know what to do." Part of me, the profession in me was like, fuck that, leave. you know what you did. But then if I would have left, I would have regretted not turning back, because there was a human side of me that I had to be better than that. And as much as some people may say you're soft, it's this, until you're in it, you know, because I turned around today, not for her. I turned around for me. I was in the car, and if I didn't do that, I would have regretted it. And it was 1 second. Hey, by the way, you got to fill this out and make a phone call. But that showed me something, that at the time, I was in this profession for 18 years and I didn't change. You know, the profession's tough because you change little by little every day and you don't realize it. And sometimes your family gets afraid to tell you because, you know, they don't know who you are anymore because you cut them off. You know what I mean? So it's really a lot on you to remember who you are coming in, holding on to something, whatever it is, and never letting it go. So it's very important for you to know who you are before you enter this profession and trying to keep that peace. So to me, that was a reminder of who I was. And I'm happy to say 20 years later, you know, I'm still me. Had I walked out, then I think I would have lost the sense of myself that, you know, maybe this profession did get to me. So, you know, just a unique scenario, but definitely a topic we could discuss. The last question I wanted to get to before we jumped off, if you don't mind, Stephen, I know we got to go, was there's so many good questions here. There was one about, I wanted to touch on this. Guys, this will be the last one, and then, guys, we will do another live one. But I think this is a good question, and even though we're going to touch on it more when we have the gentleman, I do want to mention this. I think this is a good question. Have you ever had to deal with a person you know personally becoming an inmate where you work? Oh, wait. Becoming an inmate where you... So I'm going to take it this way. I'm not thinking of a worker becoming an inmate. I'm thinking of, you know, you're in the jail and you see somebody that you once knew from the street. So I'll take it that way. And in a jail, you probably run into people more than you would in a prison. But Steve, let's go with you first. Have you ever bumped into someone you knew, and how'd you deal with it? What were the steps you had to take with the job?
Yeah, I mean, you still do your everyday duties. I've dealt with it plenty of times. Like I said, you know, working in the facility where I was, the same county where I was born and raised, I ran across over the years several people that I grew up with, that I knew, family members, friends, you name it, friends of friends. But you still have that duty to do your job, and they know that. They come in there, they're embarrassed. You know, some of them, unless they're just one who's a revolving door, they're in and out day in, day out. But most of them, they are, you know, they know you got a job to do. You come in, you book them in, you take their mug shots, you pat them down, you do all the stuff that you're supposed to do. They cooperate. There's that mutual respect there. And I know next week when we do talk, you know, when my friend, he'll be with us. He was incarcerated for mistakes, and he wants to get his story out. You know, it was my idea to get him on there, and I think it's really going to be an eye opener for a lot of people. So hopefully we go live with that. I don't know if we're going to go live or not, but it really, for civilians, corrections officers, everyone, it's going to be an eye opener. It was unfortunate we couldn't do it tonight, but you just treat them the same. Treat everyone the same. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, so I'll give you the admin perspective on this one too, just so we know. And I love what he said. So obviously you have to treat them all the same. So if you're an officer or any staff member and you run into a family member or a friend or something that you know from the streets and they're coming to the facility, the first thing you have to do is report it immediately to your higher level. It could be your immediate supervisor. If you want to keep things confidential, you can report it to your admin and your investigative division. The reason why you want to have that documented is because you don't want them discovering it later on. That's one thing. And second thing is you want to let them know if you have any concerns doing the job with that person there. Now, in a jail, it's hard because every other body come in, there's a chance you're going to know because the jails are the county. You know, so you live in the county, you're going to bump into people you know. The state corrections, a little bit different, bigger. You know, a good chance you could bump into. I'm not saying that, but there's also ways I can deal with that. If I bump into an inmate I know that I really know or a family member, I could just ship them to another prison. County, a little bit harder. You know, it's very hard, especially for something like that. I mean, you could county to county, but it's rare. Unless there's a reason for the inmate's safety, you'll get that switch off. But
and that's what I was going to say also, not just notifying the supervisors and everything, but the inmates will find out if you're related or you're friends with this individual and they get put into a housing unit. They're going to find out. They're going to talk, and maybe they slip and say, yeah, I'm Lieutenant Maynard's cousin. Yeah, I went to school with Lieutenant Maynard, or I went to school with Steve, and that just tumbleweeds into issues, to problems, and they may assault that person to get at you, the officer. I mean, there's so many scenarios we could roll out there, but the inmates will find out. So it is good to. I don't even know why I didn't mention that, Anthony, but but yes, bring that to your supervisor's attention ASAP.
Yeah, right. And then, so when you write the report, one of the things on the report that you're going to write is that I know this person, how you know them, and you're going to write if it's going to affect how you do your duties or not. Now, most of the time, I find that staff is going to say that it doesn't affect their duties. But sometimes you got to be realistic with it too. Like, if I have a friend who I know from high school, but we're not in contact anymore, you know what? I'll do my report. I don't see that person as a major conflict for me. And I'm going to say, nah, I could do that. But if I have my son or my daughter or my father, whatever it is, yeah, that's just not a good mix. Because at that point, it's hard for me to be an officer and your son at the same time. It's hard for me to be an officer and your father at the same time. There's two roles there, and which one takes priority. I think that's the big key here too, is when you write those reports, you're writing the reports to let people know you're the role of an officer, but there's another role here in play. And when shit hits the fan, what role is going to be a priority? Is it going to be you as an officer? Can you stay in that role? Or is this your son? Is it you as a father now that's going to be a conflict for you staying as an officer? So after you report it, usually what's going to happen, guys, and it kind of touches on what Steve said, is, let's say it's a friend of mine from high school. For this scenario, I want to keep the person in the prison. So obviously, for the ones that could have some emotional connection to it, you got to ship the inmate out. I actually would think, jails are not really permanent, but definitely in a correctional setting, because jails, a year or less, if you're sentenced to over a year, the prison side. But if I had a family member that was locked into one of my facilities, and again, me being a supervisory role, that's another thing, and it's a family member, like someone I'm very close to, an immediate family member, I'm going to ask, and the facility's going to do it, ship the person out. Mm-hmm. We have the resources to do that. What the hell? You have to. But let's just say it's someone I know from high school that I haven't had in contact for years, and just they happen to walk by and, oh, shit, Anthony? Oh, shit, Steve? Mm-hmm. So what you're going to do is, when you write your report, I can still effectively do my job, but I want the inmate interviewed, and I want the inmate interviewed by the Internal Affairs Division, and I want them to give the inmate the rules. And if ever they get caught sharing out my personal information or whatever it is, they will be held. They will be held responsible for that. So basically, when I put that report out there, I do want that inmate interviewed by the investigative division. I want them to tell them that these are the rules. This is what we expect from you, because trust and believe, we know what expects from us, But with that said, you set the boundary right off the bat, and you try to eliminate whatever contact you have. So if I'm an officer, I don't need to have the inmate in my unit. He can go to another unit. I don't need to directly supervise the inmate. But having said that, if we do have interactions, I'm going to play my role, and they're going to play your role. And the key thing that Steve said that's very important is to be fair, and consistent. I don't care, if I know you and you're an inmate now, and you're going to get whatever you're allowed to get, but nothing more from me. Don't expect me to do anything outside of what's in my prescribed role. And I already even said, had a family member in jail a few times, as I repeated a few times, they are an inmate. They are to be treated as such. Personal relations does not factor in. I'll deal with fallout. Yeah. Hey, can I ask real quick? I want to mention before we close. I bet you, as I'm saying, I'm treating them like an inmate. Some people will sit there and get offended by that. But you understand that the title of inmate protects me and what my job function is. It reminds me of the people I'm dealing with. So it keeps me within that prescribed role. Because if I have an inmate and I'm looking to manipulate, guys, I do have a little self-promotion here. I don't mean to do it, but I have a book on the market, Inmate Manipulation. Within that book, inmates that are manipulated will try to pull you out of the prescribed role. One of the ways they do that is by removing the label of inmate. So if I can connect with you on, hey, if you don't see me as an inmate, maybe you'll see me as a father. You have kids, I have kids. Let's connect on that. You love sports. Let's connect on sports. I'm a big Giants fan. Any chance to remove that label of inmate, and I'm sure you've seen that, right, Steve?
Oh yeah. Many
So guys, as we wrap it up, thank you for answering and sharing your perspective. Yeah, guys, we got to do this again. So if you guys ever want, this is my email, and I'll also even if Steve wants to give his email too. Yeah. So my email is ganjianthony@yahoo.com. So that's many years in corrections. Appreciate this page. Thank you for your service, Kathy. ganjianthony@yahoo.com. So GANGI Anthony@yahoo.com. And Steve, what's your email?
Steve.Maynard, that's MAYNARD, at guardianrfid.com.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions that you think we could devote a topic to, I'll be more than happy to. Just send me an email of what your topic suggestions are, and then I'll devote a panel discussion to it. And then next week when we go live, I'll bring a bunch of people on, and we'll talk about whatever questions. You want to ask questions from the outside? I know a lot of people watch true crime, so we'll talk about how you treat a celebrity in prison. How do you treat someone that has a little bit of notoriety, if you will? So, but as always, hey, Steve, like to say anything in closing?
No, I just thanks. This is it's nice and dark here on the East Coast, quiet and cool. I'm enjoying this outside with my spotlight on and just relaxing. But it's nice to be with everybody and just have an open discussion and talk and get the word out. That's my main goal now. Not since I'm not working behind the walls anymore, I still have contact with hundreds of jails in North America, and that's my goal, to help them. With Guardian RFID, I wear these shirts daily, advertising this company because what we do for jails. And if you've never heard of us, please look us up. I promise you'll love what you see. Tell your commanders, tell your supervisors, hey, let's look at this company and at least get us in front of you, because we are a game changer, not only because of the software and the product, but because of the passion that we have for the corrections officers across America. Point blank, can't be matched. I promise you that.
I love the fact people say I subscribe and I'll be back. Hey guys, you guys really made the show today. I appreciate the questions is what makes us better, because we evaluate our experiences, so we're not afraid of any question asked, because throughout our careers we've gone through situations and we've evaluated what we've gone through and be able to pretty much give out a very good dialogue. And so we welcome any questions, and we try to be very empathetic. So we try to answer questions from different perspectives, including the perspective of the person who's asking the question. So we try to get an understanding of what it is that you're looking for. So when we answer a question, it's the question that you want answered, how you want it answered. So basically that's what we did. We had the question and for the prison tattoo and prison gangs, guess what, Beatrice? Guess what? My boy Edwin Santana is going to be on. He's a very big gang investigator. He's retired now, but he's going to tell his story. He's very big with the Latin Kings and stuff like that. So he's going to tell a story how he got into gang investigations, share some knowledge, the dangers of the job. And I think you're going to find it interesting in regards to what the value he found in that job and the lives he's changed. That's another thing. So, and guys, thank you for your service. And Harwest, don't forget Connie. Look up. We have a lot of videos with her. And hey, guys, I love everybody that showed support. Please keep it coming. And again, now it's time for us to answer the questions that the public want to hear. So if ever you want to know something about corrections, if you want to know the truth about what's done behind the wall, we are a panel that will tell you the truth. Even if our people did wrong, we'll step up and say our people fucked up. But we'll always remind you that's not what we're about. We're more than that. Think about how many interactions happen in all the different jails across the country and all the different prisons across the country. Are we going to have bad apples? Of course. But I guarantee you those bad apples are nothing compared to the great professionals that are behind that wall, including some of the ones that sat on our panel, sat in the comments today. So as always, guys, love you guys. Stay safe. And I hope to have you guys come back.